All right, Patrick, prayers for you and your family and your wife and your grandmother. It's a really difficult thing to go through, so I hope you guys are okay. All right, over to the investor deck. Um, a couple things. I know you had your mind on stuff, obviously, with your wife and your grandma in the hospital and stuff, but obviously you did a great job. You always do a good job. But I got a little bit of input critique, if you will, on the deck. Um, so, Number one, on the sales slides, we talk about the sales markets with the pictures, and then we show the potential of each one of those on another slide. On the potential for each one of those, you have mentioned, like, if we sold 0.1% as 20 million. That's not what you want to say. You want to say we sell 1%, across the board average to these markets. That's 200 million, and 5% is a billion. I think it's not unrealistic that we'll fall somewhere in between that. So you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of sales of this product because we're adding value to each one of these markets that we've identified. That's it. Leave it at there. That's the way I do that. I think that numbers slide could be, made to match our branding a little bit, or you could leave it as is. It's fine. I don't think that's that big a deal either way. Now, the next slide on the licensing, you need to get rid of that on this deck. We're spending too much time on the sales slides in this particular point of the deck. We don't have to dive into exactly the terms of sales for different markets. I think the thing you might be able to add on the market potential slide, you could say, selling these units, just collecting money for selling the units. 1 to 5% is 200 million to $1 billion. We have a model that also adds recurring revenue to that. So what and then let me think how I'd say it. I would say, for customers that are using the product and not collecting money for it, meaning they're not adding revenue to their business with 360 Hoops. They're just using it. For example, a school. When a school's using elementary school, they're not charging the kids extra for PE class that has 360 Hoops. If they use it for a 3v3, they might do a fundraiser for the school. Okay, so we kind of separate that type of customer from like a training facility that is using it for semi-private training, that might use it for corporate team building, that might use it for smaller 3v3 events. We reserve all the larger 3v3 events for us to own. So, and I think we should probably think about that. It's like, so if, we'll allow a customer to have 9 or less units. They can run a pretty big tournament and earn money doing that. But for the larger tournaments that are going to have 50 courts, 20 courts, something like that, those are our events. I'm not sure how to say that. Obviously, what I'm saying right now is not right. We got to get the right script. But I think that, again, going back to the licensing, I don't want a whole slide on that. It's just way too much information at that point. And for the early stage of investor conversation, I don't want to go into that level of detail. So we're selling the units, and we've developed a recurring revenue model for customers that use the units to add incremental revenue to their business. So, for example, a school buys a unit, they're using it for PE class, they're using it to raise money for their school. They can use it for all the different ways that 360 can be used. But they're not generating more money to their school for it, other than indirectly, maybe through more registrations because they have something that's awesome. But then you take like a basketball training facility or a sport complex, for example. They're going to run programs. They might do a 360 hoops league, a 6-week league playing 360 hoops. They might run smaller 3v3 tournaments. Smaller because we only allow a customer to buy up to 9 units. And this way, the size of their tournaments, I don't know how to say that. We have to figure out how to say what I'm trying to say, and I think you know what I'm trying to say. But so maybe we say we've added a recurring revenue aspect. So sales, 1% to 5% of 200 million to $1 billion. We've added a recurring revenue aspect to it, an ongoing licensing revenue stream, which is pretty amazing. And you wouldn't say that. We've added a licensing component to our sales for certain markets. Let me explain. So if a customer is buying these hoops to use, but they're not charging money for the use of it, for example, a school, school's using it for PE class, they're using it for aftercare enrichment, they're using it for curriculum day. They might run 3v3 tournaments with their hoops, and they might play other schools. They might create a team sport with it, but they're not charging these kids extra money. If they're generating money, it's for fundraisers for the school. So there's no additional licensing components to a school. We'll have a small, maintenance fee that we charge to, show up each year and run a 27-point checklist to make sure that hoop is in good working order. We'll charge for that, but we won't charge an ongoing licensing fee for the use of our hoop. But then you take a customer that is a basketball training facility or a sport complex. So that is a business that is looking at our hoop and saying, wow, we can run a 360 hoops league. That is a 4-week league that we can charge money for. We can have more people in this league than we'd have in a basketball league. We can, this can appeal to people that maybe basketball doesn't appeal to them, but this might appeal to them. We can run our own tournaments. Now, I do want to say something on the 3v3 tournaments. So, we're allowing basketball facilities and sport complexes to own and run smaller tournaments, meaning that we're limiting the number of 360 hoop courts they can run tournaments in. Because if they're running tournaments with 20 courts or 30 courts or 50 courts or 100 courts or 360 courts, then they're stepping on our 3v3 business. So our 3v3 business is really how we're going to spread the buzz about 360 hoops. So we're going to own and manage the largest events and the sanctioned sport events at the same time as allowing sport complexes to have smaller events and have smaller events everywhere. And so we're not going to want to get involved in a percentage of that revenue or be involved in those small event business. But what we're going to do is we're going to charge a licensing fee. So we have a licensing component that allows us to collect money every year for customers that use 360 hoops to add revenue. It could be something like that. So just want to, again, take that other slide off. You could theoretically make a new slide that shows both those things on one, but don't go too heavy in the licensing, man. It's too confusing, and we're not going into the numbers like that on this part of the deck. This is not the time. There's another deck that goes into that in more details. The other thing I would say is, when you went over the school fundraising, you said, walkathon, like a school doing a walkathon, and you said something else was incorrect. You caught yourself. So I understand it. You caught yourself. I've heard you describe that better. But we're not renting. Okay, we're not renting the hoops to a school. You know that, right? So the school concept, like we've invented a business, Patrick. We've invented a business model that we call the 360 Hoops Experience. And the 360 Hoops Experience is a partnership with public school districts that allows ultimately and eventually every single school in the United States that's an elementary or middle school to have access to 360 hoops. And we do it on a rotational basis, so each school has them for 2 weeks. That's the way you describe that. And I also, when I say that, I'll say we sell it at school district level. So we don't sell it on a school by school basis. We sell to the school district. So for example, you might have a school district that, our invoice to them, because we charge a nominal fee, it ends up being around $295 per school. So we might have an invoice to them for $3,200. It's within the discretionary budget of the superintendent, the district athletic director. Every child in that school is impacted by this. They build a special PE curriculum block just for these 2 weeks. They're all excited about it. And so that invoice might be $3,800. That school's district's budget might be $400 million. So it's just like a drop in the bucket, and they can kind of get on board with 360 hoops. So that's the way schools learn about 360 hoops, is from what we call the 360 hoops experience. And it's a partnership program that we expect to renew each year with schools. And then there's a subset of those schools that the ones that do fundraising, where we offer a fundraising alternative. I mean, there's the schools that do fundraising do fundraising. Like they sell merch, they sell they sell mulch, they sell raffle tickets, they sell chocolates. Okay, they do different things. Typically they raise money for like a team, so it'll be like a team fundraiser. And then they get the kids involved in that. Now, elementary schools have been really successful doing all-day event fundraisers. That's been really the most successful fundraising aspect for schools. And there's a company in Georgia called Booster that's done this 7,000 times. It's premised with an event that run circles around a parking lot. So they come out for one day, and a DJ plays music, and first grade comes out for 20 minutes, and second grade comes out for 20 minutes, and the kids run laps. And there's a tech stack, so the kids get a pledge page, maybe 2 months before the event, and then they get prizes as they raise money. So they go out and they raise $10, and they'll get a little sticker, and they'll get a frisbee, and they'll get a plastic helicopters, different prizes they can get, and the prizes are age appropriate. And so this is a model that we're just improving on a little bit, right? We're taking what works from it, and we're making our own improvements, our own creative improvements, but we're providing an alternate experience. I mean, they've done it 7,000 times. So we know that schools want to do all-day fundraisers, and they raise on average $10,000 to $40,000 on average. Boosterthon does. And so, the way we're doing it is we kind of have a built-in market because we've already sold that school district experience partnership to the school district. So those schools are already having a 362 for 2 weeks. So when we contact that PTA president of the school, and we have 11 salespeople we're hiring in April to do just that, we're going to say, hey, Patrick, you're the president of Wilson Elementary PTA. Your school has our hoop from April 15th to April 30th. Oh yeah, I've heard about it, blah, 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 whatever. We have an all-day event fundraiser that's an option for you during the time you have it. And let me send you some info on that. And then it's just an alternate experience. Like, they're familiar with Boosterthon. Every PTA president knows what a Boosterthon is. I mean, a lot of them have done it. Again, it's been done 7,000 times, so not all of them, but people are familiar with that concept of an all-day fundraiser. And 60% of it goes to the school, 40% goes to us. It's an amazing business model because, when you have a successful fundraiser like a Boosterthon or like a 360 Hoops Boosterthon, and Patrick, we got to come up with a name for that. It's something you're going to want to do every year. As far as numbers, I would say, we expect the average fundraiser to generate gross profit of us, to generate gross profit of $5,000 per fundraiser. I think another thing to say, again, if I'm not getting into numbers, I'm just getting into like the concept of this and showing them how big this is. There's 118,000 schools in the United States, like 75,000 are elementary and middle schools. Think about that, 75,000. So when we go into markets, our market plan has us launching this year with one 3v3 event. It's a big event. We market it for months. We generate money from that. It's exciting. We get participation from coaches of youth teams, which, by the way, a lot of them work at schools. The schools are finding out about it. We invite school people to these 3v3s. Like, this is kind of like our opportunity to like introduce the whole concept to that market and the buzz. And then from there, we sell the school experience to the school districts in that area. We build enough hoops to bring them to 300 schools. So for every market that we open, we have the ability to get up to 300 schools within a school year. You might ask how many hoops we need to build in order to get them 300 schools. It's 18 hoops. 18 hoops, you're going to get to 300 schools? Yeah. What happens is every 2 weeks, a coach that we hire in that market moves our trailer. We call it our experience trailer that holds 3 hoops. And they we have a logistics and operations kind of strategy on this, but they're going school to school and they're dropping off 6 hoops and picking up 6 hoops. And they're rotating them through 6 schools every 2 weeks. So in fact, one coach working 3 business days every 2 weeks during a school year can get to 300 schools over a year. And what's awesome about that is that the next year we can grow that to 600 schools, and now they're working 6 business days out of every 2 weeks. And if you're a coach and you're in the basketball business, you're looking for ways to add more income. You really are. And typically your job is like after 4 or 5 o'clock at night into the evenings and on weekends at tournaments. So, between 8 a.m. and 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. while you would be doing this with schools, it's like, it's not interfering with your basketball business. So they welcome this revenue to do that. And they're going in there and they're talking to a PE teacher every time they drop it off, or principal. They drop it off and they pick it up. So it's an opportunity for them to also market their business, and they're a local coach in the area. So that's how we do it. But 300 schools with every market that we're opening up. This year we're opening up as many as 30 markets. 30 markets. So we'll have the ability to get to as many as 9,000 schools this year. 9,000 schools. Guess what? Next year we're going from 30 to 100 markets. So now we're talking about as many as 30,000 schools. And so some of them will do our fundraisers. Anyhow, the script for what you would say would be obviously a reduced version of what I'm saying here, but I'm giving you the points. It's not a rental, and it's not like a walkathon. Like, I mean, this fucking school thing is what gets people excited because it is very creative. It's massive, and when I actually talk to them and show them the numbers, like, when we have our 4 objectives this year, raising money is one of them, right? Raising 5 million more or less. Although I think we're going to go for 15, but 5 is my target. Number 2, selling 200 units. Okay, that's $2 million in revenue, more or less. All right, our 3v3 business, I don't know what the top line revenue for it is, but I think we're left with about 3 million, something like that, about $3 million across 30 events, more or less. Works out to about 100,000 per event. But there's administrative costs. There's the administration of the 3v3 costs that come against that. So I think we'll maybe net $1 million, right? So just, this is off the top of my head, Patrick. So let's say 2 million in sales, we net $1 million. Let's say the 3v3 events, again, that's assuming we raise 5 million, assuming we do 30 events, assuming we have those things pretty packed. But I think we can make that work, because I think we can probably have more than 30 events in order to guarantee we hit the numbers of what the target is, which again is going to be about 3 million in gross profit. We're after you take out administrative costs, we're earning about 1.5 million, let's say, on that. I'm just guessing. So now you have 1 million that we earned again. Now when I say earn, I mean that's earned before our base expenses. So earned $1 million from sales, earned $1 million. I shouldn't use the word earnings, because earnings is like net. So gross profit $1 million from sales, gross profit from 3v3 after the 3v3 administration costs, 1.5. You know what it is for fundraising? It's like $2 million, man. The fundraising earns more than anything else. It's like double everything else. And you know what's really cool about it, Patrick? You should know this, and I don't know how to talk to the people about this, but the fact is that I think schools are going to fundraise to buy 360 hoops, so we're going to hit the 200 unit sales number. But then I think we could sell 200 units from fundraising, which means now we double our sales number. So that's a bonus. There's another $2 million, another $1 million of earnings. Anyhow, all right, Patrick, that's my feedback for you on that part. Again, the unit sales, never say the example of 0.1. 1% to 5%. It's $200 million to $1 billion. We think we're going to land somewhere in between that. Every one of these markets we're adding value to. There's none of these every one of these markets benefits by having 360 Hoop. Each one is different as far as how they benefit, but there's a value proposition, and this is a sellable product to every one of those markets. So we can certainly in the next several years get to 1 to 5% of the market. No one has it. We're the only ones selling it. It's like you can be in a competitive business with competitors and get to a 5% market share. There's nothing in our way. Like, literally, we have no competitors. This is a new product. Like, yeah, we can run the tables. We might be able to get a lot higher than that. But 3% of the market, you got 600 million in sales. It's $300 million of earnings. I don't think you say it at this point of the presentation, but we are paying out every single one of our dollars of gross profit in sales as a distribution quarterly. So that's a big deal. On the licensing, again, I just wouldn't go into the details of that, other than saying that we've added a recurring revenue aspect, a licensing component to customers that use 360 Hoops to earn more revenue. And in part of this licensing, we actually give them somewhat of a turnkey business. We really show them the best practices on how to use a 360 Hoop to generate more revenue or generate more profitability in the events they do. For example, a summer camp, we show them how they can have more registrations with 360 Hoops. If they're doing semi-private training, we show them how they have more registrations for people. We show them how to use the sizzle factor of 360 Hoops to get more people to sign up for stuff because of the excitement of it. Because look at our content. We give them other ways they can use a 360 Hoop. We give them all these different ways they can make more money in their business with a 360 Hoop. And in return, we charge them an annual licensing fee. If you're a business and we help you make, $100,000 more money, would you be willing to pay the company that you partnered with to do that $9,000? Of course you would. So it just makes sense. Anyhow, all right, later.